Come back to order. We'll now go to our Committee on Community and Economic Development, which is chaired by Councilmember Pinky Vargas.
Thank you, Michael. We have one item in front of us today. I am joined by fellow committee members, Council members Murphy and Barker. We have one item, a resolution authorizing the 2017 HUD Annual Action Plan. The 2017 Action Plan is required by HUD to guide the allocation of federal community development block grants. Everyone else knows it as CDBG, and Home Investment Partnership Program, also called HOME, funds received by the city. Decisions for allocation of 2012 housing funds are integrated into the process. The action plan comes to the Council after Community Development Advisory Board, again CDAB, public hearing and review. The action plan relies primarily on existing commitments for production and preservation of projects, and contributes to new housing and support services, public facilities, and home buyer assistance. And I'm going to turn it over to our director, Rick Sepler, for our briefing.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm joined by Samuel Lutz, who will do a presentation recapping the proposed revisions, changes, and also the recommendation from the advisory board. Samuel?
So, as you said, Samuel Lutz, Planning and Community Development. The action plan is full of acronyms, as you showed in your introduction. I apologize for that. We are in the last action plan of our current consolidated plan, which is a 5-year plan that we submit to HUD. It goes from 2012 through 2017. In this case, the action plan will take us through middle of next year. And you'll be seeing me more this year with information about our new consolidated plan. So today, in addition to what we submit to HUD in our annual action plan and our 5-year consolidated plan, we also submit an annual performance report, and that is reviewed by you every fall. And that performance report talks about our goals and how we're doing against those goals that we've put forth in the consolidated plan and in our levy. I'm not going to talk to you today about goals, but I do want to go over kind of the levy budget status briefly because it plays into, of course, what we can do annually in our action plan. So I'll talk briefly about that. I'll show you a couple prior year action plan budgets for context, and then we'll go into the details of the projects here in the action plan. So as you know, the 7-year housing levy allocated an anticipated $21 million. We are now about 60% through that levy period, which proportionally speaking equates to about $12 million of that 21. In actuality, we've spent about $10.2 million and we've committed about $16.6 million. Now, some of that committed money includes sort of future year things that we've committed to over time. So it's not exactly that 60% number, but that's just to give you a flavor of where we are in that 7-year period. And we'll look at that in a little bit more detail in terms of our two biggest programs. The Housing Production and Preservation Program is the largest. It's 59% of the total levy. And these, on the left, you can see a pie chart. The red shows you what we've spent already in that program, and also what we've committed and what is remaining. And you can see there's only about 16% remaining in that program to allocate over the rest of the levy period. On the right, the larger chart shows it broken out into the two sub-programs of the preservation and the production program. So you can see that 16% equates to about $270,000 left to allocate in our preservation program, and $1.7 million left to allocate in our production program. Now, these aren't the only funds that are allocated for these things in our action plan. We combine these with home and CDBG dollars from the federal government. So this doesn't mean this is all we have left to allocate in the levy period, but these are the levy funds that are left to allocate. And then the next biggest program, which is the Rental Assistance and Supportive Services Program. You can see here the commitment category is much bigger because we do have a number of ongoing programs here. the intensive case management, the Opportunity Council Homeless Outreach Team, the support we give to the Homeless Service Center, as well as the project-based services that we allocate, which are services that go along with a specific property. So, for instance, Francis Place has dollars allocated over many years. So does Greggy's House, and then 22 North project also has services dollars committed into the future. And there's an additional category there that says competitive on the housing services side. That is because we ask for applications to come in either every year or every other year for housing services as well as human and social services, and that usually is about $200,000 a year. So I wanted to make sure that we showed those, assuming that that would continue over time, which leaves us only about $770,000 left in totally unallocated funds in that project-based services category. Again, these can be combined with CDBG funds as well as some general fund dollars that have been allocated in the past to these kinds of things. So this isn't all the money that's left in that levy period, but it is all of the levy funds. So turning towards prior year action plan budgets, just so you can get some context, the HUD funds have remained about the same, 2.8, 2.7 million, same this year. The levy funds have fluctuated depending on how much of that 7-year pool we want to put out to the community to say, tell us what projects you want us to fund right now. And so we've kind of, as I showed you before, we've gone ahead of ourselves to put money forward to commit to projects into the future. So this year, that levy portion of the pie is much smaller. You can see it's about the same in HUD funding. And keep in mind that the levy, the action plan, as is typical, reflects a mix of new allocations, budgeted levy funds, program income, and prior year unexpended commitments. The funding uses in this year's action plan are allocated as you see on that chart. This information is also in your packet in the memo. I apologize because some of the chart labels got a little, didn't print out correctly, but the information is all there in the text. So now I will go into detail about what this means, what the projects are in all these categories that you see in the action plan. So, as you said in the introduction, the process by which this happens is for a number of the new projects we put out notices of funding availability. We did not do that this year for new production or preservation funding. We're still using funds that were previously committed, so we decided not to put NOFAs out for that this year. We did, however, put out 6 notices of funding availability in these different categories. 3 are within the rental assistance and supportive services category. It says RAS on the screen. And those are for the housing services and human and social services category, as well as a new 3-year allocation for tenant-based rental assistance. In addition, 2 home ownership categories, new construction, and continuing with our allocation for the Housing Finance Commission for our down payment assistance program. We also have pre-development funds that we ask folks to ask for money in that area, and we got 2 viable applications that are ready to move now. We also put out for public facilities and improvements projects. So you all are familiar with the 22 North project. It's new construction. It should start by the end of this year. 40 units of housing for those who are formerly homeless, half for youth up to age 24, half for adults. This action plan puts more home dollars into this. So we have a total of about $500,000 in levy dollars committed to this project for the construction, and the remainder up to the 1.25 total allocation are federal home dollars. We also have the pre-development assistance I mentioned. In the rental housing production category for those that we've already committed to, you see these, the Eleanor apartments being constructed. Those should be ready for lease up in the next couple of months. 80 units of senior housing half under 50% of median, half under 30% of median. The Mount Baker Apartments, that project is under remodel right now. It's adding 29 new units of low-income housing, formerly market rate housing. And then Lydia Place has 2 projects, the Birchwood project and the Bell Tower project, both of which are under construction, should be completed soon. In the housing preservation category, these are all either existing projects or ongoing programs. Our city rehab program, the manufactured housing program the Opportunity Council runs in partnership with us, the emergency repair dollars that are set aside in case they're needed annually. DVSAS is developing the Baker Place shelter property over in Birchwood, and the Opportunity Council is remodeling the G Street fourplex, which provides homeless housing for 4 families. On the rental assistance and supportive services side, we've talked about the housing and human and service categories. You can see the listing on your budget. It's Exhibit B with the resolution that shows you each of these agencies that are put forward to you after public hearing at CDAB and a recommendation by the mayor. And then the continuing programs that I mentioned before. In addition, public facilities projects coming before you are a rebuilding of the Hope House in partnership with Catholic Community Services, and new housing with services developed by Foundation for the Challenged, targeted for developmental disabled adults. In addition, a new homeownership project, a partnership between Colston Community Land Trust and Habitat, is going in the Telegraph Road area, and this is a commitment for the infrastructure that will be put in Phase 1, covering, we estimate, 8 to 12 homes. And then the down payment assistance program that's in partnership with the Washington State Housing Finance Commission. That has 2 separate programs. One's in partnership with Colston Community Land Trust for existing scattered site housing down payment assistance, and the second is in partnership with local banks. So in conclusion, that is the sum of all of the allocation for the action plan this year. I'm happy to take questions.
Committee members?
Yeah. So did the rest of the council get what she was talking about?
Yes.
Because I did not get a copy of this. So do you have a copy with the written text? Okay, so I'll need a copy. I don't. Luckily, Michael let me assist. Thank you. Yeah, so I was able to attend the meeting to watch the CDAB members go over painstakingly how to divvy out such a small allocation to so many amazing. And I just wanted to say I was extremely impressed in not only the professionalism, but the ability of that group who's involved in social services in so many different ways to keep a high level and to step outside of their role in the community and then take on this new role. It was really impressive to watch, and you have a wonderful committee to bouncing. And I learned a ton from it and met a new friend in the audience. So thank you so much for the work. And I will say, having witnessed it, I mean, they went over it and over it and over it and through it and through it. And I feel that they were extremely thorough in ensuring that what was put forward was definitely brought to fruition in a really great way. So.
Committee members? Oh, council members? Councilmember Hamel?
Thank you for your presentation today. I wanted to ask you about leveraging in terms of new production, what these home fund housing levy dollars can do to attract other dollars for projects, and what that percentage looks like, or you know, does it produce like 6 times leveraged? I just want to get a little bit of clarity on that.
Yeah, I think the average is closer to 7 times the leverage, yeah, and it varies depending. Those rental production projects can leverage up to 12 times sometimes, but if you look overall at the levy, it's about a 7-to-1 leverage.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Barker?
I'll move that we approve passing the resolution.
Okay. Mayor Linville?
Well, I just wanted to follow
Ellie,
up. whoever I am. I just wanted to follow up on April's comment because starting with David Stahlheim and continuing on with Samia, we have actually looked at how to set some criteria that's a little more narrow based on need, city need, and I think it's been very helpful in keeping everybody on CDAB focused on the big picture and what the overall community need is, and I really appreciate it too. But I think that I think it helps to have a focus on the criteria that we're trying to meet, and the housing levy certainly did that, but there was still room for some improvement, and so thank everybody who worked on that.
Councilmember Barker.
And I'll also say, I might be getting these confused, but I remember, I think it was a process 2 years ago with this, you had changed how we were going to do it. We were looking for funding in the Birchwood neighborhood, and we had to come up to a larger board, and it made it a little more difficult, and you were having to rally people to come stand next to you and get people into and this was just so much nicer. It took a lot of stress off the people who were already overstressed trying to get these funds, and I did appreciate the change in the criteria and how to go about getting the funding, so thank you for making those changes.
Okay, we have a motion in front of us to pass the resolution authorizing 2017 HUD Annual Action Plan. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. I will recommend approval in committee this evening, and that was 3-0 and a committee.